This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. Prodeus was easily one of the best shooters, or honestly games I played from 2022. When you nail the minute-to-minute action like this, you pretty much fall in love with it right away. Joy is one of the best ways to describe picking up this game. And for some of the slightly older crowd, we feel a great sense of nostalgia, not just from the visuals themselves, but just in how the game operates. Much of the AAA nonsense that can potentially bog down a game is not found here. You pretty much get in and get right to the good stuff right away. It's fun, very fun, and you can play the entire thing in co-op as well. This smaller and very talented team is one that I hope we hear more from. We need more games like this. Now I mean this in two different ways. Yes, I want more first-person shooters just like this, or in this style, but I am curious what else this developer has in store for us in the future. In short, Prodeus is a blast. Something I found interesting with Prodeus is that pretty much everywhere you look, the game is spoken very highly about, and at the same time, many fans think that this title is underrated. As someone who likes to highlight games that might be underrated or hidden or something like that, I honestly had not considered Prodeus to be underrated. I guess this was because of all the high critical and especially player scores I was seeing. For example, go to Steam and the game is rated pretty high there. I had a conversation with a viewer of mine about it on my first Prodeus video, and he honestly got me thinking about it more. Maybe Prodeus isn't necessarily underrated, but I do think that it is overlooked, or even honestly a game that deserves more attention. That isn't to say that it isn't getting the right amount of praise, but I think it goes back to it just not getting enough attention, especially based on the high tier quality that this title brings. For generalizations, I tend to break down indies into 4 buckets. At the bottom, you have the junk that is released almost daily. Above that, you have games with a cool idea, but it needed more time in the oven to really fully realize it more. Then you have titles that get a lot right, but could have used just a bit more time to make them that much better. And at the top, you have an indie title that makes you stand back and think for a moment, and wonder how 1 or 2 people made this game. Prodeus is a top shelf kind of experience. So in that sense, because of the high quality, and maybe the lack of attention surrounding it, I would say choose whatever word you want to go with it, underrated or overlooked, but either way, Prodeus deserves that attention and much more. I think Prodeus does hit a nice sweet spot of being a retro-style shooter that is very easy for anyone to pick up and enjoy. The game starts off very focused and to the point. It's direct and well presented to the player. No nonsense to get in your way of the shooting. Start it up, grab a weapon, and get to the fun. And back to what I said before, the minute-to-minute gameplay is stellar here. It feels fantastic to fire off your weapons. Both impact and sound effects for them are extremely satisfying. One big thing that greatly contributes to this is the high amount of blood that is produced from killed enemies. I am sure if Sam Raimi picked up this game, he would probably be proud. It is horror movie levels of violence here, and on top of this, the limbs and heads can all be blown off. The enemy destruction is impressive, satisfying, and considerably contributes to the fun. This is video game violence at its best. Prodeus is a content-rich experience. The developers were really smart here as they packed a lot of options for the player. It feels like they were trying to provide the most bang for your buck. So you have the campaign, which is a very good time as you can play through a set of curated levels. And then you have the level editor and custom maps. Now while I play on consoles, it is a bit disappointing that there is no option to edit your levels there. From what I understand, it's that you need to use a PC to edit and create those levels. Something I found interesting is that the developers wanted to include this feature so that players could use the same tools as the developers to make their own creations. And it's also a great way for the community to express themselves. The developers even cited that while something like SnapMap in Doom 2016 did allow for map creation on consoles, the options there were fun but limited. They wanted to go a bit further with Prodeus. But what is provided on consoles is the ability to just search for player creations and play them outright. And the maps here are really fun. Essentially, it feels like you're getting a bunch of free content that is populating this space. So if you're sick of running through the campaign, you can load up a new level and see where it takes you. And again, it all goes back to, since the minute-to-minute action is so great, you are getting more of that and even more excuses to just keep playing the game with free content from the map makers. Personally, I love this feature. I'm not much of a map creator myself, but I like having the option to see what others have created and then try those out. Then you have the multiplayer, and for the life of me, I cannot get into a match. Sadly, I do not think this was a space that thrived at least for console releases. Which is a shame, because when you look at all the toys and guns you get to use in the campaign, this would seem like it would translate well to some fun deathmatch type stuff. And while I understand that programming bots is not an easy task, I do think that something like that could have potentially helped this area and keep it a bit more lively with a low player count in this game. Now, I even had the opportunity to play this on PC, and it's not really active here as well. But even with that, you get the campaign and level creation, so you have a lot to enjoy. Prodeus does take on an older style to its look and even design. Again, something that I really like about many of these high-quality boomer shooters is the hands-off nature to the experience. Sometimes you might get lost for a bit or even turned around as you try to figure out where to go. And I honestly enjoy all of this, and it continually feels refreshing in how the current climate of big-budget games is as well. Many AAA games really like to lead you by the nose, hand-holding the player to every point so they don't get lost, confused, or even frustrated. But there is a balance to this as well. Design your levels in such a manner that it feels like the player is discovering everything for themselves. Give them that ownership, but don't make it so obvious so it feels like you're talking down to them. Levels in Prodeus feel designed to lead the player to the action in an organic manner. Another thing to point out too is that Prodeus very much is a great example of providing player empowerment. This comes from the awesome destruction you can provide from your weapons, and that it seems like the game is always trying to push the player into the action. Now yes, the checkpoint system can push the game a bit more into the easy side of things, but honestly I love how Prodeus effectively makes you feel like a first-person shooter god at times. And even with a bit of easiness, the fun factor never drops. Some modern elements of progression allow you to unlock new toys to add to your arsenal, along with many weapons to choose from. There's a good amount of room for player expression, so that you could play Prodeus just a bit differently than your co-op partner. So back to our initial question, is Prodeus an underrated game? If you mean that it has ratings that do not fairly present the quality of the game, then no, I don't think it's underrated. But if you mean that while most people who play the game really end up enjoying it, and yet more people should play the game, then yes, I think it is a bit underrated, or maybe even the better word for it is overlooked. Prodeus even launched on Game Pass, and this is a killer title for that service, and represents some of the best that Game Pass can provide. Titles that might deserve a bit more attention, potentially now placed in the player's hands through being members of that service. If you like first-person shooters and you're looking for something a bit more retro, yet very entertaining, this is worth picking up. Plus it makes for a great online co-op game as well. Have you played Prodeus? Do you find it to be underrated or maybe even overlooked? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.